Responsible consumption and production in the fashion industry. How a consumer can protect the environment in an easy way. The fashion industry contributes approximately 8 to 10% of global carbon dioxide emissions through the production and transportation of goods. Fast fashion and disposable fashion are growing rapidly. This video is about developing more sustainable shopping processes and habits by supporting the concept of the circular economy. As part of this, responsible consumption and production is pursued as a goal of the UN SDGs. What are the UN SDGs? Sustainable Development Goals were adopted by the United Nations in 2015 as a universal call to action to end poverty, protect the environment, and ensure peace and prosperity for all by 2030. A total of 193 countries have signed onto the plan and committed to achieving the 17 goals. In this video, we focus on SDG 12, which is about responsible consumption and production. The objectives of this video regarding to the SDG 12 is a combination of the sub-goals 12.5 and 12.8. What negative impacts does the fashion industry have on the environment and on us? Every fifth item of clothing is not worn. The use of clothing decreased by 36% between 2003 and 2018, with a third of young women believing that a garment is considered old after it's been worn once or twice. People in UK believe that clothing is disposable because of cheap prices and low quality. This is compounded by the use of cheap materials in clothing, shortening their lifespan and making them harder to repair. Currently, there are too many clothes being produced. Because of this, only 60% of the garments are sold without a markdown. Clothing produced today is underused and either ends up in an incinerator or goes to landfill at the rate of a garbage truck per second. The UK spends an average of £59 million on clothes per year and exports £8 billion worth of clothing. The UK sends 300,000 tons of clothing to landfill every year, making it the fastest growing waste industry. Although it is believed that 95% of clothes sent to landfill could be reworn or recycled. There are currently 1.2 billion tons of CO2 emitted by the textile industry every year, more than all international flights and cruises together. According to a study by the British Ellen MacArthur Foundation, the entire textile industry could be responsible for a quarter of climate-damaging CO2 emissions by 2050 if the fast fashion trend continues. CO2 emissions in the fashion industry are caused by the extraction of plastic fibers, further processing, and long transportation routes. Among microplastics, polyester is now the most commonly used material in the fashion industry. When washing clothes with plastic components, the smallest particles get into the water and later into the sea. Microplastics also get into our bodies over the long term through food. Cotton continues to be one of the most popular raw materials for clothing. It needs huge amounts of water to grow. 36 to 26.9 cubic meters of water is needed for per kilogram of cotton. Even the low value corresponds to around 25 bath tubes full of water. Among toxic chemicals, pesticides are commonly used in the cultivation of cotton. Chemicals are also used in the processing of the raw materials, which end up in the wastewater and sometimes directly in the sea or river. These substances poison soil, kill insects, and can harm the health of people. People who live in countries where the textile industry is grown and processed don't only suffer from the destruction of their direct environment. Fashion suppliers create numerous jobs there, but the people there often work under dangerous conditions for minimal wages. Child labor in the industry is still being reported nowadays in some countries. Identification of areas of good practice. The fashion industry should make more use of the circular economy instead of the linear approach. When looking for an approach to break the fast fashion cycle, The term circular economy often comes up. It should minimize environmental pollution, conserve raw materials, and also improve innovation and competitiveness. What is a circular economy? A large part of the textile industry today works as a linear economy. Clothes are made from non-renewable resources. They are often only worn a little and then end up as waste or inferior secondary product. The circular economy, on the other hand, maintains the high quality of the fibers and fabrics so that after use they can flow back into the cycle with equal value. The study by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation identified 4 important phases for the circular economy. First, the source material must be of good quality. It means long durability and reduction of the environmental impact mentioned before. Second, the way clothes are designed and used needs to be changed so that they don't end up in landfills quite as easily. 3. Recycling must be considered from the start. Recycling technologies need to be improved. 4th, the use of raw materials must be reduced. If raw materials are used, they should be renewable. Identification of barriers that are preventing this issue being resolved. Numerous well-known fashion brands have already advocated such an approach. However, environmentalists criticize the existing initiatives. According to Greenpeace, numerous fashion brands concentrate solely on the recycling of their products. The actual problem, the excessive consumption of clothing, remains. They call for holistic approaches that consider the entire life of textiles. Recommendations for consumer. To reduce the fashion industry's massive carbon footprint, both individual and group action is needed to change the behaviors of the big brands. The circular economy approach shows that the entire production chain in the fashion industry needs to be rethought. The experts at the German Eco-Institute Freiburg states there can only be more sustainability in the fashion industry if state regulations are supplemented by private initiatives, and also consumers must also change their behavior. Now we take a look at what you can do as a consumer. 8 tips for you to act sustainably. Instead of shopping for new clothes frequently, focus on the pieces that you really like and you would wear often. Think about a purchase decision for a few days before you buy. Just by extending the useful life of clothing to 2 years, we could already reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 24%. Useful second-hand clothes can sometimes be found on internet platforms such as eBay or in second-hand shops. The plus point, you can sell items of clothing that you no longer wear yourself there. Prefer natural fibers. Numerous seals or labels promise pollution-free production, fair working conditions, and sustainable raw materials. Maybe you don't know what exactly is behind it. Environmental protection groups provide assistance here, such as Greenpeace with the Textile Seal Purchasing Guide. Scientists estimate that 100,000 items of clothing made from synthetic fibers shed between 0.65 and 3.9 kilograms of microfibers during washing. You can use a special washing bag that catches the fibers. A crucial step is to reduce the use of your dryer. Hang your clothes out to dry under the sun and wind. Dry delicates flat and turn colored items inside out to prevent fading. Pay attention to the washing instructions. Read the label. You would be surprised how many clothes can and should be washed in cold water. This step not only saves on heating costs, but also raises the longevity of your clothes for the most part. If your machine has an eco setting, use it to save water and electricity. Buying local clothing can help reduce the distance your clothes have to travel and reduce unnecessary carbon emissions. When your clothes are no longer useful, it's time to think about where they will go next, and landfill should be your last resort. When your garment is in a good condition, for example if you have grown out of it, you can sell it, swap it, or give it to a charity. If your clothes cannot be sold or donated, they may still have another use for them. For instance, a t-shirt could be turned into a cleaning material. Another option is to recycle it. Find out if your local charity store accepts damaged clothes. Many stores will donate worn garments to be made into industrial rags. Personal opinions about this topic include that consumers should be made more aware of the problem in the fashion industry so that consumers can do more to counteract the environmental damage caused by their purchasing behavior. However, it is not enough for consumers to simply try to give away, keep longer, or recycle their products. From the government's point of view, there should be also changes regarding the legal regulations. Perhaps the government can set guidelines for the fashion industry on how much water or how much carbon dioxide the industry can use. This is intended to reduce the production of clothing and the use of harmful raw materials in order to cause less CO2 and protect the environment. It is important that young people in particular are made aware of this topic because they must and will change the environment of the future. Through the challenge module, many important aspects related to climate change, reduction of inequalities, and responsible consumption and production could be learned. Participation in the challenge module has changed the perspective on a more sustainable life. It could be learned that only through a cooperation of individuals, businesses, and government, the world can be changed for the better. It is important that students studying business-related studies learn about the challenges in the environment to make the world a better place.